There is a robot on the rampage attacking our heroes, saying that once they beat them, everyone will know they're the toughest guy in the galaxy, but Gwen corrects them, saying that would be Ben. As Humongosaur slams into them, but they wrap their metal arms around them, and Ben hits the Ultimatrix, changing into Ultimate Humongosaur. Ben was a lot more violent than he should be, bashing them with his tail, shooting rockets at them, charging at them, and slamming into them with their fist, then proceeding to beat them over and over. As Gwen tried to call out to Ben to stop, we take note that his eyes were red instead of his usual green color. Gwen calls out to Ship, whistling for him and calling out for alternate B, take down 7. Ship barked in response to that and changed into a spacecraft form before firing missiles at Ben, knocking him back and getting Gwen high enough that Ultimate Humongosaur couldn't reach even with his missiles. And she then began to chant some sort of spell and created a duplicate illusion of himself, which he tried to fight off. Once he'd worn himself down, Gwen called out a sleeping spell, making them pass out, and Ship helped to hold them down by merging with different construction equipment and began bending metal beams around them. We later see a woman that says this is highly unusual, but Gwen says that Sandra says she's the best therapist in town and she would know. The therapist said she'd give it a shot. She asked about their mother and they just yelled at her before their eyes changed from red to green. She then asked if they were Ben now and asked if his childhood had any traumatic events. Ben starts to laugh, saying that she doesn't even know the half of it. Alien ghost creature trying to possess him, alien squid warlord trying to kill him, fighting Frankenstein's monster, the mummy, and a werewolf all in alien form. She looks surprised that Ben could mention that so casually, as he says it's something that he's gotten used to. Ben ripped up the cables and he began to glow strangely, and in an instant he seemed to be gone, and the Ultimatrix was there with the dial deactivated. Gwen lifts it up, unsure what to do, but decides that maybe she could somehow get inside. We see Ben looking around in a strange area that was all green around him. Gwen tells Ship that once she's inside, she wants him to take it to Azimuth to see if he could do anything about it, and he barks in response to that. We see Gwen using some sort of strange spell that allows her to travel to the inside of the Ultimatrix to hopefully find Ben, and Ship barked, picking it up with his non-existent mouth, and began to scurry away. Ship continues making his way back towards Ben's house as some nasty looking guys asked where they were going. He barked his name at them and they mistook him, asking to find a ship, and says that they had a ship but it ain't gonna be free to ride, and he growls at them as they laugh, finding it funny. He thinks he can fight. That is until he changes into the turret form we saw previously and he starts blasting at them, causing the goons to run off. They continued making their way to the house, spotting what he remembered to be the car that belonged to Ben's mom, and started going towards it until Argit appears, asking where he was off to, and he growls at him. Argit says no hard feelings, he was just curious about that little trinket he's got, trying to grab it. But Ship growled, moving away from him as Sandra's car began to move, and he tried to follow them, attaching himself to an abandoned motorbike that was busted in an alleyway. Ship then absorbed the Ultimatrix before Argit could grab it and run, and drove off. Ship did his best to catch up to Sandra and pull up in front of her when she'd stopped at a red light, spinning around in circles, barking his name as she got out, and he dropped the bike and the Ultimatrix barking at her. Sandra took Ship home with the device, and while she was talking to Carl, Ship went up to Ben's room, attaching himself to the plumber's console, and tried to contact Azimuth. We cut for a moment back to Ben and Gwen, seeing that she'd found him, and they were hiding from the sentient Ultimates. It wasn't just Humongosaur, but also every other alien he'd gone ultimate as so far, that being Swampfire, Cannonbolt, Wrath, Spider Monkey, Echo Echo, and Big Chill. Ben had said if the Ultimates had achieved sentience like Zaskare did, then they deserved to be free. Unlike him, they weren't evil beings, and the Ultimatrix brought them into existence. Unbeknownst to him, Ultimate Big Chill had been watching and listening. We cut back to Ship as Azimuth answered the communications frequency, and Ship disconnected himself from the console, barking at him. He tells them that the console is not a toy for them to be playing with, and that Tennyson should get a leash for them. Ship continues barking and tries to get the Ultimatrix lifted up to show Azimuth, but he'd already hung up by then. This annoyed our favorite Mechamorph as he let out an annoyed growl. We hear a loud crash and get a scene of Sandra and Carl running upstairs, seeing Ship flying away in spacecraft form, with the roof of the house torn off. Cutting to Ship flying around in space, someone started blasting at him and he growls as they started trying to hail him. It was an incursion cruiser. He pulled the brakes, making them fly in front of him, then began to blast at them for getting in his way, blowing out their engines, as they then had no choice but to drift through space. He then rammed them, changing their course and making the frogs drift into a black hole as he continued flying. Ship had finally made it to the Galvan homeworld to get the Ultimatrix to Azimuth like he was told to do, and flew around dodging the planetary defenses, landing in a safe area, and began making his way to Azimuth's lab with the Ultimatrix. A Mechamorph guard tells Ship to halt, and he growls in annoyance at everything trying to stop him today. Cutting to the inside of the building, we see the Mechamorph guard was blown through the doors and out the back wall, with Ship scurrying his way inside with the Ultimatrix and looking up at the Galvan behind the desk and barking his name, as the receptionist just looked surprised by the little Mechamorph as he then picked up the Ultimatrix and then began to scurry away on up the stairs on his merry little way. Ship looks around once up the stairs, looking confused, and makes his way back downstairs and barks at the receptionist again. They confused asked who he's there to see, and Ship holds up the Ultimatrix as if that's an answer. She asks if he's looking for Azimuth, and Ship barks in response. They tell him that it's the final door up the stairs to the left. They bark again in a happy tone as if thanking them, wagging what could be considered their tail, and made his way on up the stairs again. Ship tackles the door that he was told, trying to open it, and Azimuth gets annoyed by the banging, answering it, asking what was causing all the racket before seeing Ship there and asking what they wanted. And Ship then nudged the Ultimatrix towards them in response as if that was an answer. He asked where Ben is, and Ship looked at them, then at the Ultimatrix again as if answering. Sighing, Azimuth asks Ship to try to explain the best they can. So our favorite little Mechamorph then began growling and moving around, knocking down empty cans before shrinking down into the shape of the Ultimatrix. And Azimuth says that's interesting, as we then cut to the inside of the Ultimatrix as we see Ben walking towards a glowing red pit of some sort. Ben turns to the Ultimates and asks if he could at least say goodbye to Gwen. Ultimate Big Chill, who had been spying, says that he deserves to at least be allowed that much. So Ben walks over to Gwen and tells her to take care of Ship for him, placing his hand on her cheek and kisses her lips, before slowly turning away and walking willingly back to the pit. He tells them all that he never meant to be their jailer for what it's worth. Ben then willingly jumps into the pit, falling willingly into the fires below, with a smile, glad that they would be freed from the Ultimatrix. Ben woke up with the Ultimates all around him along with Gwen and Ship. He looked confused and asked what happened, and Azimuth explained that his self-sacrifice reset the Ultimatrix. He also says that he's fixed the glitch that caused the Ultimates to become sentient. From now on, they will simply be extensions of himself. Ultimate Spider Monkey says that now that they're free, they don't really have anywhere to go, with Ben suggesting that they travel the universe to see what it has to offer, just like he did as a kid. Maybe check out their unevolved species, homeworld, and get to know others of their kind. Ultimate Big Chill says that before they go, there's one more thing they need: a name. Nodding, Ben points to each of them, naming them Blaze, Works, Ripper, Czar, Kron, Reverb, and Hale. Before the Ultimates were able to go out to see the universe, Ben asked Hale if he could have a quick word with them. He'd wanted them to check on something for him, please.